Let's talk about prepositions, specifically at, in, and on. Now, as a basic student, you're just trying to survive, and so latching onto some rules can be really helpful. However, as you get to a more advanced level, I encourage you to sort of break away from a rigid understanding of the rules and begin to understand how conceptualizing is going to give us clues to which preposition is correct. Conceptualizing means what's the picture in the mind. So I'm going to explain this further and walk you through this, and I think it may help you understand some times where maybe you are confused about why people chose a certain preposition. Okay, prepositions. Let's take a look at this. Is it a point? Is the person thinking of things as a surface? Is a person thinking of things as space with volume? Do they feel surrounded? So before we go too much further, what are prepositions? So yeah, they're little words. And sometimes they're annoying. Sometimes they're confusing. And then sometimes maybe you're thinking, what do they even mean? So let's talk about what they do, and that will help deal with some of that. Prepositions show relationship. You'll have a noun phrase, verb, or adjective, and we're showing the relationship to another noun phrase, verb, or adjective. So here's our preposition in between them, showing relationship. Here's an example. The chocolate is in the kitchen. So we're showing a relationship between the chocolate and the kitchen, telling where the chocolate is, which is very important if you like chocolate like me. So a possible help here is look at the noun after the preposition for clues. Look for how is a person conceptualizing? What's the picture in their mind? So this might feel random, but it's actually not. Do you like chocolate? Because I do. I love M&Ms, but I don't eat them very often because they have too much sugar. So if I can't eat them, we might as well have fun with them. So here goes. So prepositions and fixed location. The first one is a house. And here come the M&Ms. They're going to help us all along the way. So they're pointing to their house. This is where they live. So an address, how are we thinking? How are we conceptualizing? We see it as a point on the map. And so we use at. They live at 123 Chocolate Street. And the lovely green M&M. She is on a street. We use, thinking of it as a surface. She lives on Chocolate Street. And then a town. It surrounds us. Here's our little M&Ms. So it is a space that has volume. So they live in the part of town that likes chocolate. Prepositions and movement. We haven't talked about to, but the idea of he went to the kitchen or moving towards a point. And then you notice the counter. We're thinking of this as a surface. He climbed on the counter. And then this is dangerous. Our M&M has jumped in a pot of melting chocolate. So he jumped in a pot of melted chocolate. And so we have sides and we feel surrounded. So we use in. Because that pot is a space with volume. Okay, so I might have a basic student ask me, do we always use in with a town? And I would probably say mostly. But as a more advanced student, let's get a fuller understanding of this. Let me explain. So here's a picture of TCC where we have our ESL classes. Probably a common understanding is if we are in a town, and so we have this sense of it surrounding us. Tulsa Community College is in Tulsa. That's a common understanding of how to use a town and to use in with it. However, that doesn't mean every time we have a town, we use in. It's not that easy. But if you allow yourself to think, how are we conceptualizing? This will help you. Forgot to mention, it has volume. So we move on to our next example. This is a picture of Tulsa. The sun is shining on Tulsa this afternoon. We use on because the way we're thinking has changed. We are now thinking of Tulsa as a surface. And here's our little sun. So the sun is shining on this surface. Because we're seeing this kind of a picture in our mind, we use on. And here's another situation. And here's our little M&M. Not the most safe place for our M&M, but that's okay. So I have a stop at Tulsa on my way to Dallas. Why at? Because the way we're thinking of Tulsa has changed. It's not so much that we feel surrounded, and it's not so much that it's a surface, but now it's like it's a point on the map. I stop in Tulsa, then I stop in Dallas, then I finally make it to Houston. It's just one of several stops along our journey. It's a point on the map, so we choose at. Here's another example that I like to use to help students be able to get a feel for the difference. So let's look, we have a chair and we have a stool. Think about them. How do you feel when you sit in each? Let's take a look. Here's a little M&M. Sitting. Do we use on or in? So how are we conceptualizing? What's the picture? Do we feel surrounded? Or does it have the sense of being a surface? That is what will help you pick. The chair has sides and a back, and so we feel surrounded. It feels like a space with volume. The stool feels more like a surface. There are no arms. There's not a back. I mean, if our little M&M was real, he would fall because he's leaning up against nothing. So in the chair, we would likely choose in because we feel surrounded. He is sitting in the chair. For the stool, we would probably say he is sitting on the stool because it feels like it's a surface. Here's another way to practice this. And try to think, what's the concept? How are we conceptualizing? There is a difference. Both have a cat and both have a bed, but we're thinking differently. How are we conceptualizing? Is it on or in? I I have had internationals just be confused about this. You know, maybe somebody marries an American and they're like, why do they say on the bed? Why do they say in the bed sometimes? What's the deal? So let me explain. It's the way we're conceptualizing. So if you're have a blanket over you and like sheets under you, you feel surrounded. It feels more like a space with volume. But notice the white cat, we're thinking of the bed as more of a surface. There's nothing on top of us. We don't feel surrounded. It's just a surface. So the white cat, the cat is asleep on the bed. But with the black cat, it has covers on top of him. So the cat is asleep in the bed. So to summarize, try to break free of too many rigid rules and just think, how are we conceptualizing? And that will help you choose the right preposition. What is the picture in the mind? So look at the noun after the preposition for clues. So hopefully this will help you as you're choosing at, in, and on.